KFIZ News Time 8:10. Good morning to you. Welcome to this week's edition of Landscape Smart, brought to you by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. And joining us, as always, the one, the only, Ron Rademann. Good morning, kind sir.
Well, good morning.
Good to see you.
Yeah, well, we got a kind of a blasé day today out there. Huh?
Better for working outside tomorrow, the way it looks.
Yeah, I don't know. There was like a little, supposedly some scattered showers around this morning, but we haven't really seen it.
It scattered around me.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything wet. And joining us, the other Snickerer over here.
Snickering.
Snickers. Oh, yeah. Halloween. Trick or treat. Snickers. Master Gardener Carol, good to see you.
Good morning.
And, of course, people are plucking, pulling, and removing.
Yes. Some do and some don't.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them wait until spring.
I'm a plucker.
I do too. I take mine out, but I have big trees and all that there to help keep, so that everything doesn't blow away. Because last year was tough. I have to admit, I lost all 3 of my hibiscus. Did not survive the winter because it didn't have a lot of snow there to cover it up.
Well, depending on which almanac you believe,
Right.
It may be a different situation this year.
Well, and last winter's warm temperatures actually hurt us more than helped us because we had so much freezing and thawing all winter long. So that's why
Tough on
we
plants.
had problems with hibiscus and some of the hydrangeas and some of the ornamental grasses. And, it kind of cherry-picked some of the weaker Zone 5B plants out that we've been getting away with for quite a few years. Those all got
Hammered
last year. And so it was somewhat selective, but it wasn't because it got down to 10 below or 20 below. It's because it was actually warm and we were getting all that freezing and thawing and then without any snow cover, we'd have a week of cold weather, which would put frost in the ground, and then a week of warm weather, which would take it right back out. And plants just don't like that. They'd rather just be cold in December and January and February.
with a nice cover over them.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, and the snow definitely helps. So, sometimes you're better off not doing such a good job cleaning up in the fall and leaving those leaves there to help insulate some of those plants.
923-1450, 1-888-900-1450. Lines are open for your questions. If you choose email, kfizstudio@gmail.com, and you're welcome to send pictures of your issue as well, because that way this esteemed group of experts can take a look at your pictures and come
See
up
if
with
that
maybe a better
helps.
answer.
See if that helps.
Yeah. Rademann's open?
Yeah, Rademann's is open today, Saturday morning till noon, Monday through Friday till 4:30. So we'll probably go on winter hours here pretty quick at Rademann's too. I think this is the last Saturday that we're actually open.
So if you need a Saturday trip down there, today's your day.
Right, being the last Saturday of October.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is our last Saturday, actually, that we're open. And kind of speaking of which, we only have a couple more shows to do here yet, too. We'll do one next Saturday on November 1st and one on November 8th. And then we're off for the winter, too. I haven't talked to Sean or Randy or anybody else yet to see if we should do winter shows. We haven't... all of a sudden it's here,
Yeah.
You think, well, you got all summer to decide that stuff.
Guess what?
And-
It's gone.
And so, we'll see once if we do the first Saturdays of the month this winter.
We did do that for a while. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Most-
We
I
didn't
think-
last year. I was
No.
gone like,
Most of the Saturdays.
2 or 3 out of the 4 Saturdays, the first Saturdays of the month, I was on vacation. So it didn't work out real well last year, so we just didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But the way my winter schedule is lining up this year, I think I'm going to be around most of the first Saturdays. So
So I guess the word is stay tuned and find out.
Yeah,
Right.
tune in next week or our final week. We should get it figured out by then. If we don't have it figured out by then, we're all in big trouble.
Got that right. This could be a really dead hour. 923-1450, 1-888-900-1450, KFIZ studio at gmail.com. All righty.
Yes.
And if you can't listen to the whole show, you can go on YouTube and check back in with us. Just search Landscape Smart 25, and today's show will be up and running. So if you can only listen to the first half, then you can listen to the other half in a couple days once Cody gets it up and running.
And you can
Usually does it on Mondays. So
okay. And you can see what this group looks like.
Scary, isn't it?
It's Halloween.
yeah, we don't have our costumes on, and we still look like we're ready to go trick and treating.
I would be hard pressed to get candy with this outfit. Anyhow, give us a shot if you got a question. This is a good time to do it early in the show. We'll be taking a break in just a couple of minutes here. Anything in particular you want to address today, Ron?
Well, we talked earlier about the winter damage, and it doesn't need to be cold. That's where mulching does work out real well. So, some people say, well, I'll wait and mulch, put my fresh mulch down in the spring. But, fresh mulch actually does more good in the fall than it does in the spring. And not that, if you miss fall, you should still do it in spring. That you should do. But if you can get it down now, especially, if you're working around somewhat borderline plants, like some of the hydrangeas, the different, especially the vegetative hydrangeas, let's just call the PG varieties, Quickfire and Little Quickfire and Little Lime Punch and some of those, those would all be fine. But the Endless Summer family, the ones that you buy in the blue pots, any of those are all a little borderline hardy here in the Fond du Lac area, let's just say. And if you can put mulch around them, pile it up, put it in there 3, 4, 5, 6 inches, and and then in the spring, spread it back out around the plants. But, mulch, get that mulch around them. You can almost cover the whole plant. And even like some of like I lost a knockout rose in my yard last year, a rose that had been there for more than 20 years, so, you'd think that after 20 years,
You're safe.
You're safe. But, of course, I got lazy and didn't put the mulch around it. I always did earlier when it was newer. And it's actually in a plant bed with decorative stone, not with mulch around it. And what I did the first few years is I had mulch around it and stone around the mulch. So I had like an 18-inch circle of mulch. But then as that mulch disintegrated, I didn't replace it, and I just pushed the stone up around it and never but after that long, I thought it was going to be fine. But apparently even, a rose that's unprotected in a winter like last year. And
It's a dead rose.
It's a dead rose now, yeah. So
in other words, you're saying, do as I say, not as I did.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. I can speak from firsthand experience.
Or you could get out of this by saying you just wanted to experiment to see what would happen.
That's what I said about my hibiscus.
Okay.
And I lost all 3 of them, and I had not put extra mulch down in the fall. I never really just dump it on the plants. But I have evergreen trees and big shrubs in all of these beds all the time, so I always think I'm safe because it's not going to.
When you're
happen,
talking mulch, are you talking leaves or are you talking wood mulch, or what are you talking? You're talking 5-6 inches?
I use wood mulch.
You're using wood.
And you could do the extra leaves too, but it's a little harder to keep them in place. Although mine
They can blow around.
They can blow around.
Where if you put like wood chips or shredded bark mulch.
Straw, hay, nothing like that?
Yeah, well, that's all kind of messy. And that's where
Yeah.
if you put, bark mulch, you can put a nice circle around them and it looks nice and keeps it tidy. Whereas if you got leaves and straw or grass clippings and all this other stuff, it looks like a mess. And
especially if your bed is wide open, then it would blow away. Where mine, there's trees and shrubs, like I said, in between there, but still sometimes it blows away. So,
Alrighty.
especially when it's open all winter, if you have snow and it's melting and refreezing, and now you've got the ice kind of blends in with the snow, or the snow melts and turns into ice, and it kind of freezes the leaves in place. But without that, this past, last year, and it was, I don't even, did we have a day that was below zero last winter? I don't even know if we did. If we did, we didn't have many.
it wasn't the super cold. It wasn't like,
No.
we had a 30 below thing, which we
Yeah,
haven't
and
had in a long time. But
Yeah, and we saw more plant loss last year than what we've seen in the last 10 years put together in one of the mildest winters. So it doesn't have to be, these hardiness charts that predict that are all worried about the low temperatures. Well, you can throw those, right in the cylindrical file because, they're a good guide, but, it's not a cure-all to these problems. But what it does is it does tell you, which plants are more vulnerable than others, but it doesn't have to get to 20 below to kill, like I said,
It's that off and on, warm and cold, that
Correct.
seems to be really the nasty.
right.
If it would get to 20 below and stay there, they would all be safe, which sounds totally wrong, but
Yeah.
it is.
Let's take a break.
All right. Yeah. Let's take a little break here. Then we come back and talk about something different.
Yeah.
So Rademann's is open today till noon. You can still get a delivery. You can give them a call out there at 920-922-7612 or stop on out just 3 miles south of Fond du Lac.
And we are back. Landscape Smart, brought to you by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. Lines are open. They're not broken. We just haven't had any calls yet. 923-1450, 1-888-900-1450. And you can email us to kfizstudio@gmail.com. Feel free to send a picture or two. And we've got a caller, so let's hit the phones. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Ron. Hi, it's Cindy.
Oh, hi, Cindy.
How you doing? In regards to watering, I just have to say how important it is. I had a client, we did a full landscape last year, and I thought, gee, she's watering a lot. But gosh darn it, this spring, and it was all in stone, everything came through with flying colors except for the one euonymus that the rabbits ate down to the ground. But everything was beautiful. And I don't know, maybe just that consistent watering when you do plant the material so the roots develop just helps a lot and helps strengthen the plant to make it through winter when we have those harsh conditions. I just, we both can't stress enough how important it is to keep that moisture.
That's a super good point, Cindy. We talk about it and we kind of preach about it, let's just say.
Yes.
Even. And, when your plants go into winter under stress, that's when the damage occurs. And if you put them into good health, if they're in good health going into winter, they stand a lot better chance of making it. Cindy does like gardening for homeowners, around the Fond du Lac area. So she gets into she sees a lot of different situations. Right. And so, we talk regularly, we bounce questions and ideas and thoughts off of each other all the time because she actually sees, a lot of things that I don't see because she's literally, in the garden.
Right.
every day all
Right.
summer long, and I'm in.
Yes.
So
And like I said, I had probably 40 jobs not on the list for this year because I had to do so many replacements. Well, those are 10-year plant material, 15-year plant material that all died.
mhm.
Now, if some of those would have been watered going into winter, I don't know what would have happened because obviously they weren't. But it kills me when people say, "Oh, I turned my water off." I turned the water off.
Yeah,
Like,
don't
not
turn your
yet,
water off
please.
yet.
Yeah. So it just can't be stressed enough that you just, depending on the size of the plant, how much water you give them going in this time of year. So.
Well,
wanted
and
to
it's
mention
been, it was so warm in September. I mean, it was in the 80s. It's not like it was,
Yes.
in the 60s like it usually is in September. It was in the 80s. And
Yep.
in most of October was in the, 60s and 70s even. It's just this last week where it got a little, chillier.
Right.
And these little bit of rains that we've been getting, they kind of wash the dust off of the blades of grass, but they never really even get down to the soil.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
so, our plants are all going into winter this year under stress again. So
I was just digging yesterday some spring bulbs in, and the ground was bone dry where I was digging. And it was out in the open where if it did rain, it wasn't under a tree. So, yeah. Granted, it was up a little bit, raised a little bit, but, there are some spots where it's a little wet, depending on the location. But they're not all like that. Yeah. So just a reminder to everybody, it's important. It's really important. Spend that money, raise that water bill.
Yeah. Well, and that's what, we always say is, water is the cheapest remedy. If you have to replace one plant, you could have watered
True.
everything all fall long. And you don't need to water every day. If you watered thoroughly last weekend, you're in good shape yet this weekend. Things don't really dry out. So,
Right.
just because we talk about it every Saturday doesn't mean you need to water every Saturday. You just need to pick one day, and water, and then you're good for, at least a couple weeks at this time of year.
Exactly. It doesn't, right. You don't have to do it all the time now. It's right. Just a couple times yet going into winter would be good enough. So anyway, just wanted to add that little tidbit because it's so important. So.
A lot of times you lose a plant and you think, well, I just lost one, but the one right next to it's under stress then too. And and then that one is next to go, and it stays green, temporarily, but it's kind of like just hanging on by a thread. So if you lose one, you better get out there and water the rest all again, or water them better than what you have been, because more than likely they're all under stress, and one just happens to die ahead of the others. So, and this is especially important on, if you, like in your case, Cindy, where you did a lot of these replacements, now those are all new plantings this year.
Exactly. So please water them, as I have keep telling them. So,
Water.
yes, water.
Well, thanks for calling in, Cindy.
Thank you.
It's always
All
good to
right.
hear from you.
All right. Thanks so much. 923-1450. Lines are open. We did get a question from Scott on the internet. Email at kfizstudio@gmail.com. And Scott says, I've cut my lawn down to 2 inches and added winterizer. The question is, 2 inches too long for winter?
Well, I like 2 inches, at this time of year, keep it a little bit lower. You kind of never really know when your last mowing is, and you don't really want it, your gut feeling would say, well, I should leave my lawn at 3 inches or 4 inches over the winter. It would do better, but it actually does worse, because then if it's too long, it tips over and mats down. So if you cut it at about 2 inches, it seems to work best, or 2.25, maybe 2.5. But at the same time, not 1 inch either. You want to leave it up just enough so that it basically catches the snow but doesn't mat down. And somewheres in that 2 to 2.5 inch range seems to work about the best. So, I think Scott's spot on with where he's at here. You can keep it at 2 inches at this time of year. It's not like summertime where you want it to maintain it at 3 inches because you're worried about the heat and things like that. So,
alrighty, that should answer his question. And we got a caller. Good morning. You are on the air.
Yes, I was calling to see where I would get a soil test for my lawn.
I like going to Agrland Co-op. They're over. Are you in the Fond du Lac area?
Yes.
Yeah. There's Agrland. Or what is it?
Country Visions.
Country Visions. I was going to say they're not Agrland anymore. They got a new name. Same place, same people, same service, but Country Visions. And so they're over in the Fond du Lac area. They're kind of off of Hickory Street on
West 12th, I think.
Is it 12th?
I'm pretty sure it's 12th.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Between Hickory and Seymour.
Yeah, it's the only. There aren't too many streets that run from Hickory to Seymour over in that area, so I think it's 11th or 12th Street. So if you're in Fond du Lac, that would be a good place to go. But there are Country Visions, out in Malone and in other burgs too. So anybody else that's listening in, you don't have to drive into Fond du Lac necessarily. You can take it to any one of those, and then they would do I think they have kits there for you that you can stop in, pick up a kit, and then it kind of runs you through how to test it and then take it in from there. And they're interesting. They'll tell you if you need nitrogen or if there's any other iron or any other deficiencies in your soil.
Question then, does the soil change depending on what you have growing on your property? If you've got a bunch of evergreens over here and a bunch of maples over there and nothing in the middle, is that chemical composition of the soil going to be different because isn't it going to be more alkaline where the evergreens are versus...
Yeah, it would actually be more acidic.
Acidic, I meant.
Yeah,
I knew what I meant.
Where the evergreens would be, but
it was a test. You passed.
Yeah, and for the most part, if you're testing for a lawn for fertility, that's going to be pretty consistent. But you might want to do one test for the front yard, one test for the backyard, or something like that too. And once you do that, then maybe the next time you'd say, well, it's the same. I don't need to do 2 tests. If they're coming out the same, if you're ending up with decidedly different results, then you might want to, continue doing more than one test throughout, because sometimes, you have higher, if you're out in the country, a typical, 1/4 of an acre or less in a city lot, one test is probably sufficient. But if you're out in the country and you got rolling terrain, you might need more than one test. Nitrogen moves around in the soil, so it doesn't last long. Now your iron and your potash, your phosphorus, that doesn't move around quite so much. So, if you get one test one year and one test the next year, you're going to find that most of your other levels are going to be quite similar, so you probably don't need to do a test every year. And the nitrogen, if it's good, rich, dark green, you know, there's plenty of nitrogen. If it's kind of pale and limey green, then you probably do need more nitrogen. So, you know, but it could be pale and lime green because it's deficient in iron or something too. But if you do a lawn test and you get good results, you know, on all the other trace elements, you probably don't have to do another test the following year, because you can almost look at it and see if it needs more nitrogen, and the others don't really change that much. You know, if you're borderline on, let's just say you're borderline on potash or something like that, once you would replenish that, it would probably be good for a few years. So, and so, you know, that's kind of and we're talking, you know, those are the main nitrogen, phosphorus, potash. Those are your main elements. Iron is important too, and sulfur, you know, to a certain degree, but for the most part, nitrogen is what you see when you drive down the street and you see a nice green lawn. You know there's enough nitrogen there, and you might not have to worry about too many of the other things as far as lawn goes. Now, if we're talking trees, that's a whole different. And you know, maybe after we come back after the break, we can talk about soil tests on trees too, if we don't get another call. But
I took the hint.
Well, I saw you reaching for the lever, so I kind of thought you must have something in mind here in between these calls. So anyway, going to take a little break. Rademann's open today till noon, Monday through Friday to 4:30, and you can stop on out. We're just 3 miles south of Fond du Lac, east on County B, about a quarter mile.
KFIZ News Time 8:42. We are back. This is Landscape Smart, brought to you by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. Good opportunity for you to call in any questions you may have. 923-1450, 1-888-900-1450, or email kfizstudio@gmail.com. And before the break, they were talking dirt.
Dirty talk.
So more dirty talk coming your way.
Yes.
So, yeah, well, we were talking about soil tests and, you know, how it affects lawns. And, you know, there's different rules on trees and shrubs. And it's kind of the same way, you know, if your tree looks, you know, rich and dark green, it's the soil's probably just fine. If it doesn't look quite right, you know, and it's yellow, or you see the dark green veins, or if it's, you know, if it's lost all its leaves, you know, for the most part, a lot of trees are still holding their leaves, but if they lost them early, or sometimes they color up early, that's just kind of tells you that a couple things. Either it's not growing as long and as it should be into fall, and that can be caused by, you know, lack of moisture, lack of rainfall, lack of watering. They just shut down earlier. Or it can be a nutrient deficiency. And of course, you know, if, again, these are both easily solved problems, but, you know, watering is always easier than treating the soil. But, you know, if you have a maple tree or a birch that's kind of limey yellow, you know you've got either a soil pH problem, which means the soil pH is too high. It needs to be a little more acidic, and it's not, because if the soil pH is too high, the iron isn't available. Iron and manganese isn't available to the plant if the soil pH is too high. So you have to drop that soil pH down to 6.5 or 7, and you can do that with sulfur, or, you know, and the best way to, to do that is treat it with both sulfur and iron at the same time. That way it doesn't really matter what your problem is. You've solved it either way, because the sulfur lowers the soil pH, and then the iron is there for the plant, and that gets those leaves back to green again. And of course, it doesn't just, the leaves don't turn green. The new leaves come out dark green, but the old leaves are going to stay yellow. So if you treat a tree, you one year you don't even notice it. That year you'll notice it more the next year when the tree leaves out. It's going to have better color to it. So that's what's a little bit trickier. If you fertilize your lawn, you go out there a week later and it's rich dark green, you saw the results. But when you're treating the soil systems on trees, a lot of times you don't see the results for a whole year. So you're treating in 2025 and you're not noticing it until 2026.
A question for you now that you're talking about this, and I can't tell you what type it is. I got an evergreen tree. It's about 20, 30 feet tall, short needles. And inside, not the outside parts of the branches, but inside, the needles are, in a good portion of it, are turning brown. Is that normal, or is it a dirt problem, or is it a nutritional problem for the tree?
Well, and actually, Jerry, that's a question that I get a lot of times, towards the end of September and into early October. And your evergreen trees kind of naturally molt every year at that time of year. And of course, it's more pronounced in a dry year. They'll molt more leaves, they'll those inside needles turn yellow, and then they turn brown, and then they drop. And of course, the tree looks better after a month than it did the month before, because now all those yellow and brown needles are on the ground, so your tree goes back to looking green.
Green, yeah.
So, but some of them will still linger in there, and I can't always say again. Now it could be. There could be spider mites. There could be insects in there that's sucking the life out of those needles too. So it isn't always, but typically when you're seeing that, if you're seeing that the molting at the wrong time of year, it's probably an insect problem or a mite problem. Spider mites aren't quite really classified as insects, but they are the same thing. They just are tiny specks that suck the energy out of the needles. And so, if you're seeing that problem in May and June and July, then you've got an insect or a mite problem. If you're seeing it in the end of September into October, it's probably just the natural process of it. And this year, with it being so dry, it was even more pronounced, because then more of those inside needles drop than if it's hot and dry, you're going to lose more inside needles than you will if it's cooler and wetter. So,
and with needles, gone is gone, right?
Yeah, once they're gone, they're gone in there. And it doesn't really matter so much, because the new growth then comes out in the spring, and it kind of hides those inside
bare spots.
Yeah. So, and there again too, the more new growth you got, the more it hides. And of course, that's why older trees aren't growing as rapidly as younger trees. So you see more of that yellowing in an older, more established tree, because it only grew 6 inches instead of 12 inches. So you don't have if you have 12 inches of new growth, it covers up those yellow needles better than if you only have 6 inches of new growth, twice as much.
Yeah, and those old branches obviously are huge, the bottom branches, and there's a lot of bare spots in there already.
Sure.
But you're answering the question then, because it really didn't appear until a month or two ago. So it's probably the natural
and
process.
it's kind of something is, I'll get, all of a sudden I'll start getting calls, on this, towards the end of September, and within about I'll literally get one call on Monday and another one on Tuesday and two of them on Wednesday. It all kind of shows up at one time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even have to look out the window at the, the balsam firs in my yard, because I can tell just by my phone activity
What's happening,
what's going on, and typically at that time of year, that's the problem more so. This year I told people, well, water them, because you can limit that yellowing and browning. If you water, you get half as many inside needles dropping as you do if it's under stress, then more of them drop. So, and this year at that time of year, that's when we were into the 80s and we had a few, we were even getting 90-degree temperatures and no moisture in sight. So, that was advice number one, is your tree's not dying, but advice number two is, give it, go ahead and water it.
Back to the topic we were talking about before.
Right back to where we were at 8:05.
Alrighty, final break. And we are back, the final few minutes of this week's edition of Landscape Smart, and I believe we have a caller waiting. Good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning. I have a question for Ron. When is the best time of the year to trim an oak tree?
Well, you could do that now. You want to, well, let me go backwards just a little bit. If you're trimming large, let's say 100-year-old oak trees, you don't want to do those during the summer season, because you're promoting oak wilt. Where once you get into November here now, you can go ahead and do this. How old is your oak tree?
I would say maybe 50 years old, and there's some lower branches hanging over a small garage, and I want to get them, and it's causing it to mold or mildew on the shingles, so I want to trim some off.
Yeah, you could really do that, any time now. The book says, you want to trim between November and April. I guess it's close enough to November. So I don't know that you'd have to, wait till next Saturday if you have time this Saturday. But,
Okay.
And typically like a 50-year-old oak tree, you don't really have to worry about oak wilt so much yet either. It's more the 100-year-old or the 200-year-old oak trees that we worry more about oak wilt. And so, like, for example, we'll trim 10 and 20-year-old oak trees throughout the summer months, because you're basically cutting, 1-inch branches or 2-inch diameter branches off. You don't really have to worry about oak wilt on branches like that.
Yeah, these would be about maybe 4 or 5-inch branches.
Yeah, and so you should be safe anytime, in the next 4 or 5 months to go ahead and do those. Sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All righty, thanks for the call. Let's hit the next caller. Good morning, you're on the air.
Hi. Say, we're wondering, will butternut squash ripen up once they're picked? On one side, they're a little green, and the vines were all dried up.
Well, if the vines were all dried up, there's not going to be any nutrition or change after that anyway, I would say. So sometimes it's just the coloring of the outside shell, but I think you'll be fine.
Okay.
Unless they're really, young ones and didn't get mature enough to be a really good squash, but otherwise that should work.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All righty, thanks for the call. Well, we got a couple minutes. 923-1450.
Excuse me.
Choked you right up.
Yeah. Yep.
So if you haven't planted your garlic yet, now's the time to do it.
That's right. That's a fall thing.
That is a fall thing. You put that in. You can go down to the I think the farmers market's still going.
Last day
huh?
today.
Last day today. Buy
Yeah, I saw
some
they
garlic
had it.
bulbs and plant them.
Yeah, they had it fenced off yet this
Yes.
this
yes.
morning. So
And if you're lucky enough to have winter onions, now's the time to put those in too. I take what, grew on the top of the plant and in their individual little bulbs. They're in my garage, and I plant several rows of that because then I have nice little slim, they don't grow into big onions. They're just like a shallot. So it's time to plant those too if you're lucky enough to have them.
So it's not just cleanup time, it's also planting
You can
time.
plant them, yes.
Okay.
yeah, and it looks like the 10-day, 14-day outlook. Actually, there's very few days in that forecast that show as cold as what we got this morning. So we aren't going to have any frozen ground for the next couple weeks yet. So you still have, a couple weeks here to get a lot of these things done yet. You don't have to. Sometimes, we get to November 1st and the ground is starting to freeze already. But, the ground temperatures are still pretty warm. They're getting colder by the day, by the minute, literally. But for the most part, we've got 50s forecast and, 35 and 40s for overnight lows. Nothing, into the 20s for the next, 2 weeks here in the Fond du Lac area. So, and if you put your winterizer fertilizer down 3 weeks ago, you might want to consider doing it again next week or the week after, because it's probably burnt up, probably got used up. So,
And you're probably still mowing.
and you're still mowing right now, probably rather strongly. So, in the little bit of rain that we did get, it did kind of help the grass at least a little bit. So,
Guess what?
Time's up.
Running out of
it's
time
it's
again.
almost Jerry Schneider time is what
It is, yeah.
what that says. So again, Rademann's open till noon today, Saturday morning, Monday through Friday till 4:30, and you can stop on out. We're just 3 miles south of Fond du Lac on County B, just east of Highway 41.
Next week will be our last show of daylight saving time.
Oh, that changes too.
Next weekend, yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, it does. Hey, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks to Carol, Master Gardner, Ron, of course, and you especially for your calls. And we'll be doing this again next couple of Saturdays.